I'm very attracted to the skill set involved in overhead environment diving. I like that you need to be completely, in good trim and like hovering at in a horizontal position without moving, and all these things. All these things fascinate me, and I bring elements to that into training my dive masters and instructors.
Off Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. At a young age, Anand Chandra Sekaran would be captivated by the documentary The Underground Eiger. This story of British cave explorers would be his motivation to pursue a career within the world of scuba diving. A journey that would propel him into a position of leadership, a role in which he mentors, guides, and ushers in the future torchbearers of the industry. With each course taught, he aims to level up the quality of training received, all while continuing his journey into the overhead environments of Southeast Asia. Please enjoy. Anand, how are you doing this morning, man?
Yeah, I'm good, Nick. Awesome. We've been at the Dive Expo for the last 2 days. We had a party last night. It was thrown by a really cool bunch of guys and got to meet a lot of people. Yeah, wasn't a very late night because I knew I was coming here this morning. So.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a little bit of a late night for me, and it was funny because I was kind of chatting with you about this on the way up. So I've been to dive shows before, not very many, but this is the first time I've actually worked at a dive show, and damn, dude, I'm just beat. It's Sunday. There, like we set up on Thursday, there all day Friday, all day Saturday, gonna be there all day again today. And I was like, man, I feel like I need to prep for the week just to push through these 3 days.
Yeah, tell me about it. I haven't done one in more than 10 years, I think. Yeah, so I'm not used to wearing trousers or jeans and shoes, right? So I've been wearing shoes and walking in shoes on my Converse Chucks for the last 2 days, and it's killing my feet right now. So yeah, I think I might switch to my flip-flops.
Well, how is the dive show going for you so far? Are you finding some good stuff to buy, maybe sell? How's it going all together?
Yeah, I'm not really here to buy stuff. I've got enough shit as it is. Dive stuff. I don't really need any diving gear right now. So we've got a booth. So my company, Anti-Gravity Divers, we've recently taken on to be the Southeast Asian hub for a system called the Avelo system. We can talk about it in a little bit if you want.
Cool. Yeah, and funny enough, because I'm working at the event too, and our booths are right across from each other, so that's kind of a plus. So I've been stealing your crowd all weekend because literally your booth has just been packed, and I'll just walk over and hand somebody a flyer and be like, hey, come check out what we're doing over here.
Yeah. So thankfully, my role is not really to be standing around the booth. My role is to be walking around. I had a lot of walking around, but going around to other dive center managers, owners, and talking to them about the system, and just getting the word out. So so I get to walk around a little bit more.
Cool. And it's actually kind of fun. It's fun. I feel bad sometimes because I've met quite a few people, and then I'm like, man, I know that person, and then it takes a minute to click, and then I feel bad like if I kind of ignored them for a little bit because I was like, shit. But it's cool to meet up with a lot of people that you've met over the past few years.
I tell you, the trick to that is just look busy all the time, and they won't feel they won't feel offended if you ignore them, or just look busy and walk.
Tricks of the trade from the master over here. Okay. Yeah. Well, welcome to the podcast, man. So for our listeners, we've actually did a recording before, but there was some corrupted files. We'll say the files weren't exactly good. So maybe at some point we'll release the unreleased tapes of the first interview. But for now, welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for re-recording. It's always kind of a pain, but I appreciate you being patient.
Thank you very much, Nick. For we've tried a couple of times, right? Since I made a whole trip to Penang, but then arrived too late and all that. So we just ended up having a couple of beers at Nick's place.
No, it was yeah. So I'm glad it worked out. We're here, and so I'll jump in with my usual first question that I always like to ask is, this being a scuba diving podcast, tell me how and why you became a scuba diver. Tell me what led up to that moment. Was it amazing, that first breath underwater? Was it horrible? Was it, this is okay, I think I could do more? Tell me all about that first breath.
Okay, so my parents, when at an early age, basically sent me for swimming lessons right from when I was like a year and a half. So my mom used to take me in the water and the swimming pool. This is very unheard of in Malaysian culture, by the way, just so you know.
And you're originally from Malaysia.
So ethnically, I have different backgrounds, but my parents were born in Malaysia. I was born in Malaysia. So I started swimming at a very early age, and I remember, I must have been 3 years old. 3 years old, I was already doing laps at the deep end of the pool, and couple that with when I was about 8. I saw a documentary on TV. So in Malaysia, we're a former British colony, so we used to get a lot of British TV shows, documentary series. So there was this series that came on TV. It was called the Underground Eiger. I only remembered the name. I had to go back and look it up again. But it was about these two guys in the UK, and they were connecting one one system to another via an underground river in the mountain Eiger. The mountain's called Eiger in the UK somewhere. And this fascinated me because also on top of learning swimming at a young age, so I was one of those kids that whenever I used to play, I used to crawl under beds, and I loved putting bed sheets in between two beds and making like a little, space for myself. And the smaller the space, the better. So from a very young age, I was already fascinated by
overhead environments.
Yeah, overhead environments, you could say. And I was even crawling into drains, yeah.
How did your parents feel about that?
They didn't know most of the time. They didn't know what I was doing. This is the time, when we were allowed to go out and play and just like be kids, Yeah, so swimming and that, and then I saw this documentary, and I was like, wow, I was fascinated by these guys. Like, wow, they're swimming underground and in this like massive long hole.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, so you could say my fascination with diving started with cave diving, overhead environments, right? So that after that, I went to school. So my parents sent me to a boarding school in Penang, and there was a school trip to go and do the open water license, and in Langkawi it was, and thought my parents wouldn't pay for me to do that. They had a friend back in the day that had DCS.
Oh.
At the time, I didn't know what it was. It was, diving's dangerous.
Yeah.
Apparently, he got his leg cut off. It was quite serious.
Oh, wow.
And then many years later, I found out it was because this dude had gone to do some logging, underwater logging at a lake, and didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
And got And
oh, wow.
So anyway, they didn't let me dive until I went on a trip to Phi Phi in the early 2000s, and I did a DSD there.
And that's Thailand.
Yes. on Phi Phi Island, and absolutely loved it. And of course, and I'm like, I gotta save up money. I just started working. Ended up doing my open water course in 2005 on the Perhentian Islands. And my first breaths underwater, it was amazing. Like, I loved it. I wasn't the best diver. I was like a Michelin man, typical. I have big lungs, so I was holding on to a lot of air. I remember now. I mean, now you're teaching people to not do that.
Yeah.
To just relax. It's like, breathe underwater like how you would breathe on land. Like, it's the same thing, right? But yeah, I remember floating around and just flopping around and not being able to control anything underwater. So yeah, it wasn't easy for me at first. Also, looking back, like my instructor wasn't the best at explaining concepts of buoyancy and all this kind of stuff.
The DSD or the open water?
In the open water course. So managed to figure it out after a couple of fun dives afterwards, and diving, dive masters giving tips and all that.
Yeah.
So immediately after my open water course, it was 8X. the weekend after, and then so the two guys, the couple that I did open water course, they're my best friends basically. So they went to 8X, and so we bought our own gear basically the next weekend, all three of us. So they were there. I wasn't there, but I like looked online as to what I want, and what I wanted. And I still remember the BCD. My first BCD was called the Oceanic Probe. Really nice BCD, really tough. So yeah, dive number 6. I'm like in my own gear. But yeah, I never looked back. Like
No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Now you look back on these kind of people that go out and buy their own gear, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, he's loaded guys. But for me, I wasn't loaded at all. I just I had some money saved up, and I'm like, okay, I love this so much, I'll just buy the gear.
Yeah. So that's funny because my first time scuba diving actually was on PP Island too, and I call it kind of the tropical discover scuba. Like I wish I could remember more of it. I have really strong memories of certain things throughout the day, but as far as like, I'm sure I was horrible in the water. I mean, I had to be, right? Like I was absolutely not even in, I was basically first time ever being underwater, but I just remember it was on PP Island. He's like, okay, the boat goes out at 9, meet at the pool at 8. And so we meet at the pool. They suit me up real quick. Like, don't remember any of this. And they're like, okay, just give me some gear. I think we spent 15 or 20 minutes in the pool going over a couple skills, and then boom, off on the boat, diving. And I remember going down the first probably meter or so. You're supposed to clear, but I didn't remember that he had told me that. So there's all this pressure, and I was like, oh, this is horrible. I have to go up. But I remember him telling me like, we don't want to go up. We want to stay down and figure out our problems. And then I'm like, man, I have to go up. And then I remember to clear. And then after that, it was the best thing in the world. I absolutely fell in love. And it was a little bit after when I did my certification, but I was one of those people that did buy my gear. I didn't have the money, but basically the shop had this deal where you could put it all on credit. You just put some money down, and then you make payments each month until the gear was paid off. And then you had to leave the gear at the shop, and then basically every time you wanted to go diving, you would come and rent your own gear, but that money would go towards your bill. So basically it was kind of nice because it put me into my own gear. I got an Aqualung Axiom, I think is what it was, which I had for years after. Was yours a jacket style BCD or? My
first one was a jacket style.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If I had known back then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have bought.
No. And to be honest, I ended up eventually going I think kind of a lot of people gravitate towards the backplate and wing, but I ended up keeping that BCD for a long time just because I ended up doing a lot of work at the lake in Texas underwater. And it was a nice BCD with big pockets, so I could stuff it with a bunch of tools, and I didn't mind if it got all messed up. And so it worked out for a while. Like, I'm glad I got it, but it's kind of funny how you gravitate towards the backplate and wing.
But it's also kind of funny, like at the start of your diving career, and you see all your the instructors wearing these BCDs with all these. And they look like Christmas trees, with all these things hanging off their D-rings. And you thought that was cool. I thought that was cool. Anyway, yeah. Hey, dude, like, wow, look at all these,
they got all this stuff
hanging off him.
They got
I want to get that. I want to get this. Yeah.
Oh, it is funny. And, I've encountered some people where they get into DIR very early on, and then they kind of shun all these people. And I try not to shun anybody because it's all about who you learn from, right? Like if you don't know any better, you're gonna follow what your instructor does because
exactly.
I don't want to say they're God, but they're they're the person that you're looking up to. So it's just about saying, oh, there's a different way of doing things. Let's try this. But some people are just stuck in their ways because I've met people who still want the Christmas tree look.
Yeah, of course. Like you got to be careful as well what you say. Sometimes when you go a certain way, and then I've got a lot of passion when I talk about dive training and instructor training. So I got to be careful because I sometimes I can go a little bit too much in what I say, and like there was even a time where when I saw a few years ago now, I'm just like do whatever you want, man. but like anyone that had long pointers, I would secretly hide them. And we have a drawer in my dive shop full of long pointers, pointy sticks.
If I'm wreck diving, I dive with a pointer. I like it.
No, it's fine, but it's mostly the people that didn't know how to hang them.
Yeah.
If you shove it like along your BCD and it's close to your body, it's fine. But these guys were hanging them off, and they're like a meter long, dragging, like hanging off their BCD.
It's like a spear.
Yeah,
just right.
It's like So anyway, I don't do these kind of things anymore. I just kind of like you try and educate as best as you can. The most common one is, of course, on the quarter turn back or all the way, back, all the way open or quarter turn back. And you can see the look on some people's faces when you're trying to tell them why you shouldn't turn it a quarter turn back, and they're so, they're not convinced enough.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think it kind of depends from what genre that they learn from, right? Because someone put it this way before, where when I don't want to say kind of helium was coming into the mix, and I know we're getting very far ahead, so we'll back up. But when they were early on in their diving, maybe like late 90s or something, where helium was starting to kind of come up as this new lighter gas for deeper dives. And deep air diving was deep air diving is kind of still a thing, which it shouldn't be, but that's a whole nother topic. But, this guy who am I to tell this guy who's been on 1,000+ deep air dives? I've been on 3 helium dives. Who am I to tell him that this is right? And it's kind of one of those things that you battle with, like this guy that's been doing the quarter turn back for the last 15, 20 years. And, so it's one of those things it's scuba diving, the whole industry is such a tough thing sometimes, because sometimes you're fighting against the grain with what is a better idea, but to break those it's not easy breaking bad habits, right?
Yeah.
So especially when they think they're good habits,
Yeah, but with the quarter turn back, like I'm not saying it, I'm not advocating it because I read it in some article, fan article. It's because I've actually encountered situation where it wasn't me personally, but it was one of my divers where they were, I can't remember, maybe about 50 bar of air, and we were slowly ascending from the dive, but we were still at about 13, 14 meters. He's not panicking, but he's going,
you can see it.
Yeah, you could see he has a problem with his regulator. I'm like, okay, so we ascended from the dive. I didn't realize straight away what the issue was. Yeah, and then later on, you get educated. It's because it was probably more than a quarter turn back. So.
And no, so it's because I'm obviously I keep it all the way open, and I know that I actually, to be honest, I don't know what the argument for it is. I'm sure I've heard it 100 times.
To take a quarter turn
back.
back.
Yeah.
I honestly don't really know as well, but it's something to do with the valves back in the day being stuck when you. Anyway, it wasn't it's basically more that it was taught, over the years, like your grandfather taught your dad.
Tribal knowledge.
Yeah, it's like
basically
tribal knowledge, right? So.
Well, reverting back or coming back to education, you took that first open water course. Obviously, you got the bug, you're hooked. Tell me about the progression from there. So was it immediately after you went and signed up? Because I know this day and age, it's like you do your open water, they're immediately selling you the advanced open water. You feel you want to be the advanced open water, which is fine. Like everybody wants to learn more.
Yeah.
But was it talk to me about your progression? Was it from open water up through, obviously now you're a dive professional. So tell me about the, going through the ranks of advanced, rescue into dive master.
Yeah, nobody had to pull my leg, man. After my open water course, I think it was on my last couple of dives of my open water course. I remember asking my instructor, so how long did it take you to become a dive instructor? And he said 6 months.
Oh, so you immediately knew you wanted to become a pro.
Yeah. I was already, it was already in my mind, and I was like, oh, okay. So he gave me all this information. I'm like, well, 6 months seems kind of like a short time. And he's like, well, think about it. If you're diving all the time, every day, and you're doing, you're fully immersing yourself in the whole process, It's not really. I mean, some people get, diplomas in 6 months.
Yeah.
Mechanical degrees or not degrees, but like certifications in 6 months. My journey took a bit longer, so I did my advanced course. Like again, I started diving with a group of friends. So there's this couple, Ilhan and Zizi. I would count as some of my best friends. So they joined me until rescue diver. So we did advanced like a couple of months later. Then I think rescue the year after.
Was this all in Malaysia?
This was all actually on the Perhentian Islands.
Okay.
So we took our journey until rescue, and then until this day, they're like, "Yeah, you left us behind, man." Like, so they still dive. Maybe not in the last couple of years, but they continued diving recreationally. So I ended up doing my dive master course. Yeah, a couple of years after that, like 2008 is when I did my dive master course. But I did it, because I was also working in my family business at the time. So I'm from Kota Baru, which is a town up north, not too far away from the Perhentian Islands. So for me, I could just pop over on the weekends very easily. It's only a couple of hours away for me, including the boat ride. So yeah, I go every weekend, pretty much do 3 dives, come back on the weekends, and then so did my dive master course that way as well over a space of 6 months, and then did my IDC. I actually wanted to go somewhere else to do my IDC. I was like, if I'm gonna take this amount of time off, I'm gonna go somewhere else, right? I don't want to do it on the Perhentian Islands. I want to see something else. Go, spend some time out. So I was looking at Bali, Phuket, and then I bumped into someone on Perhentian Islands who was on holiday, and he had done his IDC with this guy called Azman, who's now my business partner. So he's like, "Hey, why are you looking elsewhere? Why are you going?" And he's like, "Do it with Azman. Like, he's amazing. Like, he's good. Like." So I did a little bit more research on Azman and found out that actually, this guy is pretty solid. So signed up to do my IDC in 2008.
Let me ask you a question real quick. So going from, obviously the rescue course is kind of the obviously it's the course right before you go into Dive Master, but when you go into Dive Master and you kind of step into that professional role, that professional side now, right now you're the leader, you're the people that you're the person that people are looking up to, following, you're the example, right? How was that transition going from basically I'm a fun recreational diver, now I'm in the leadership role? Was it easy? Because I know for some people they gravitate towards that teaching sense. Some people it's a little bit of a trick, or not trick, but how was that transition basically going from fun to now a role model?
So I'm one of those guys that if I really, really find something passionate enough, and this is basically the last thing I found, passionate enough to really fully immerse myself in gaining as much knowledge as I can by reading and, just reading as much as I can on the internet, books. If I were to meet my dive master self back in the day, like I would tell him, you're terrible, man. Like you're ground yourself a bit more. You're nobody in this industry, dude. Like
they build you up though. They make you think you're
of course,
God's gift to water.
When
Neptune.
You're in this recreational bubble, it happens, right? It's sad but true. But and on an island as small as Perhentian Islands, the instructor is God. So dive master, you're second to God, right? And you're like, yeah, I'm a dive master, or whatever. And if I meet my own self from back then, I'll just tell him, dude, you're nobody, man.
Well, the thing is, though, that comes with experience, right? Because in a sense, if you're somebody that people are looking up to, you have to have that confidence, right? Because if you don't, like if I'm looking up to somebody and I'm asking them a question and they don't answer me confidently, then it throws me a little bit off. So it's almost, there has to be that balance of like, yes, that confidence needs to be there, but you don't realize how much ignorance is there until later on.
Exactly. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah.
Right?
So, but you do need that bit of confidence though. Cause if I ask you, hey, if I go down there and I'm going to die and you're gonna be like, well, I don't know. You're gonna be like, shit, like. But if this guy's like, no, we're good, then you feel, so it's. I'm not saying that's right, but there does need to be that. But yes, because
I get what you're saying. Like now with a lot more knowledge, you're like, people ask you these questions and then you give them complex answers that they don't really want to hear it, right? All they want to know is yes or no answer. Yes, you're good. I get it. Yeah.
So it's one of those things, but so you obviously gravitated. You liked the role model, the leadership, the educational figure. You liked it. You grabbed. Obviously, I mean the role that you're in these days. So it's something that you jumped into and haven't looked back, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest as well, back then at that age, it was also a little bit to do with the title of being a dive master. Hey, I'm a cool dude.
I've made it. I've made it. Yeah. Look at me.
Of course, like I'm not gonna lie about that. But then the more so once I became an instructor, like any instructor, I struggled through my first few courses and I was doing things wrong, but I was at least keeping the guys safe, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. That's the biggest.
Yeah.
You went out with 5, you came back with 5.
Yeah.
That's a plus. Yeah.
But then, over the years, so I quickly became a staff instructor. Just only a year or 2 years after I became an instructor, I did my staff instructor course, and then and I saw a whole different perspective on, and it made me a better instructor. I mean, anyone that tells you, you don't become a better instructor after being a staff instructor is lying. And you do. You see it from a different angle. You see it now from a trainer's perspective of how you're gonna, train someone to be a better diver. So I also immediately then I had an opportunity to open a dive center in Koh Lanta in Thailand with one of my best friends who lived up there and had a resort up there. He called me over and said, hey, come over here and start your dive center here with me. And then, so I did that. And I went into management. And so management it made me learn a lot about the industry, which the knowledge I gained from starting a dive center was invaluable. It was, because there was a lot of trial and error. And especially in Thailand, the level of safety, I suppose, and level of just standards just a little bit higher, and in terms of we're talking like equipment, like how often you need to hydro your tanks, visually inspect your tanks. I'm not saying they don't do that here, they do, but it's not regulated here, so you'd have to be there's a lot of self-regulation that goes on in Malaysia, sure. Of course, there's also a few dive centers that don't. They may hydro their tanks, but people can see the stamp, right?
Yeah.
So they have to. So visual inspections, I don't know. Anyway, so I learned a lot managing a dive center from the first few years. So I had to take a step back from teaching a little bit, but I made it a point to staff as many IDCs as I could, instructor courses. So my course director at the time, who's my business partner now, also another one of my best friends, we staff as many IDCs as I could. I ended up over the years doing about 15 IDCs with him. And so it kept me kind of up to date and kept me, even though I wasn't really teaching as much,
You're still involved, yeah.
I'm still involved.
So let me ask you this. Your career path, or I should say that your journey in scuba diving has you've kind of traveled down some different roads. The instructor path, which you just been awarded recently, like 2 days ago, right?
It's
You're like, it's nothing.
It's I'm not. It's nice to be recognized, I suppose, but it's a PADI award, and everyone will get one at some point.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, right?
Well, congratulations. I think that's an amazing thing. But what I was gonna say is, you have your I don't want to say, well, it is obviously your professional side, but then there's the personal side of it. Going back to you kind of fell in love with the overhead environment. So talk to me a little bit about your personal journey, not the professional side. And I know they're kind of both intertwined, obviously, but when did you kind of start, because I guess it depends on who and where you're learning from, the different types of environments, but there's people that can go from down the professional path and they never find their way into the DIR side of things. I don't want to say technical because it's such a broad word, but I think you kind of know where I'm going with this. Where you start doing more sophisticated dives, start doing dives with a higher risk. You're going into the overhead. You might be going a little bit deeper. You might be just basically kind of gravitating. So tell me about this, not the professional side, but kind of like your personal journey, and where did that go and where did that lead you?
I mean, I've always had this mindset where you want to do something well, you got to do, especially with teaching diving, you got to be diving at a higher level than you're teaching, right? So yeah, it was the same with when I became an instructor. I started my own dive shop in Koh Lanta. It was in 2010 that started, and then during the low season, I went and did a tech course. It was PADI Tech 40 to 50, and that was when I first learned side mount diving. Although looking back, it wasn't really side mount. It was it was a jacket PCD like rigged up to with tanks on the side.
Oh, I'm curious to see how that went.
So I got fascinated by side mount because of like a lot of people, a lot of side mount instructors today. I watched the Steve Bogart's video on YouTube, and that was an eye opener for me.
Game changer.
It was
a game changer for sure.
I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. My God, the guy looked awesome, calm, like graceful,
streamlined.
I'm like, wow, I want to do that.
The exact opposite of the Christmas tree.
Yeah,
it's like a branch.
So I went to the Philippines and did side mount course, tech side mount, and then my tech 40 to 50 course. It was like space of 15 days or something I spent in Subic Bay, which I want to go back there again, Subic Bay.
Who'd you do it with in Subic Bay?
It was a guy called Tim Auction.
Okay.
At the time, he's an older dude, like been Vietnam War vet.
A lot of vets in Subic. I mean, it's a former military base. Yeah.
He was a PADI course director, one of the biggest ones at the time in the 70s. Or he started teaching instructors in the late 70s. So anyway, when I did my side mount course, and I was like, this is nothing like the video I saw, man. Like, this is nothing like it. And so anyway, I just took away as much as I could from this guy, and came back, bought my first side mount harness. It was the SMS 50. Oh, and I was
Hollis, right?
It was the Hollis, yeah. I was so in love with it at the time because it looked sleek.
Yeah.
Right? It looked
yeah.
Nice. I mean, of course, if I know now what I knew back then, I would just be like, dude, throw that away and buy some,
I mean, everything has its place, right?
Yeah.
But no, because I when I started looking into side mount, that was actually it's the 75. It's not the 50 these days, or it might be the same. I don't know, but
I think they still have the 50. I don't know, but
I was looking at that one too. But I mean, I know a lot of Florida cave divers still like that with the heavy steel bottles, sure. But
of course, the 50 is like, it's tiny, right? It's like I don't think you can do 2 tanks in freshwater, especially not steels with that lift. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe it's just for 1 tank or something. I have no idea. But anyway, it was do
you still have it, or did you sell it?
I sold it. The person I sold it to recently came back to me and said, hey, the dump valve's broken. I'm like, yeah, well, it would. It's like, 15 years old or 13 years old or whatever. Yeah, and it's been overinflated so many times because of, it's got that tiny
funny.
Lift.
That's funny.
So anyway, I spent my that early side mount journey learning a lot on my own, and then finally, of course, I came across the Steve Martin videos, which was a game changer.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, hats off to the guy. Like he knows what he's talking about, and what I like about his videos is he constantly updates his videos, and anything new comes out. And I just like the philosophy of the guys that are doing it now. That anything they feel that can be done better, it gets updated, right?
No, and I like his platform too, because it's obviously, there's something to be said about personal instruction, right? But the way that he puts his videos out and the amount of knowledge that he puts through his videos, I've definitely met quite a few people that have never met him in person, but just watched his videos, and they're phenomenal divers. Like, and so that's something to be said. Almost even, I don't want to say against the agencies, but it's like there are different ways to do things that will equal positive outcomes. So the side mount journey, and sorry to cut you off there.
So there was the Steve Martin videos, and then that was the first time I then learned about the difference between the ring bungee system and the loop bungee system. And then I realized the SMS-50 was a ring bungee system. I was trying to use this really thick bungee as a loop bungee, and I was like, why isn't this working? And and then I figured a lot of stuff out on my own, just like researching and watching
trial and error.
Trial and error. So I did a lot of side mount dives in those days at the beginning, like just like tweaking. I'm like, I want to get that guy's trim, that Steve Bogart's guy. Like, I want to get I want to be able to hover motionless and all that. So I'm, just testing and putting my weights on different parts of my body. So coming back to overhead environments then. So I'd always wanted to. Since I started diving, my whole mission was one day I want to dive in wrecks and caves, right? So it took me a while, though, of course. It was because in that world, you're like, you have to buy your own equipment, and it's double of everything. So it took me a while to actually save up enough money and be able to afford all of that. I attempted first in 2013 to book a to book a full cave course with a company called Blue Label in Phuket. Which they don't exist anymore. So it's run by Ben Raymonant. So I booked a course, and I had a starting date, and then my dive company in Koh Lanta got really busy. It was during a very busy period, so I had to cancel, and it was so long that I kept postponing, and I lost my deposit eventually. So. And then finally in 2017, I told myself, okay, now is the time. You got to do it now. It's now or never. And then I got in touch with Pour. So I was looking, over the years, I was like between 2013, 2017. I wanted to look for someone who was actively doing it. So not just a cave instructor who someone who's cave instructor certified, teaches or who's an instructor trainer, but once in a while dives in the caves.
Yeah.
I wanted to look for someone who was doing it all the time, and Por was one of those guys that popped up that, he's constantly in a cave and.
Oh, he's built up quite a name for himself because he's active, he's out there, he's teaching, he's diving, he's doing it all.
I mean, especially in 2017, he was doing a lot of exploration stuff in Bao Bao and, So it was his first trip to Bao Bao that for me was like, okay, I got to do this. Now it's now or never, do it, So I got trained by Por, and I remember my first ever cave dive. So I don't recommend anyone to do your cave course if you haven't dived side mount in a while. So at that point, I was off side mount diving for about 6 months. So even though I'd had hundreds of dives in side mount, and also, furthermore, I had a new I just bought the Stealth Tech for my cave course. So it was a new system and all that. And I don't recommend it to anyone. But however, struggling with all of that, while doing a cave course.
Well, it's not an easy course. So going in with unknown variables, it's gonna throw you for a loop for sure.
But even then, it was the best. At that time, it was the best dive of my life. I came out of the dive going, oh my God, that was the best dive of my life. Like, it was because it was an overhead environment. Visibility was like.
Was this in Thailand?
This was in Thailand, in a place called Song Hong. It's a very famous sinkhole in the middle of nowhere in Thailand. It's most part a lake, but there's a section to it that can be counted as a cave. But yeah, that 3 meters of visibility, but it was still the best dive of my life, right? And every dive subsequently on that course, on that journey, was the best dive of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm getting like comments from people going, "Yeah, you have not seen anything yet, dude." I'm like, I don't care. I already had the best dives of my life.
How are you with the limited visibility? I'm assuming, and this is just an assumption, obviously, kind of the places, Perinthian, Thailand, the visibility was probably mostly good all the time. So now you're in a low visibility environment. How did that throw you for a loop at all? Was it obviously you weathered through and had a great time, but were there any challenges there going from, or had you been exposed to lower visibilities before?
I think the challenge for me wasn't the lower visibility issue. Like I had dived in rivers before, like in Kota Baru, my hometown. I'd been asked to dive to search for a dead body before. So limited visibility wasn't the problem. It was the freshwater element. So that was my first time. Also, on top of diving with the stealth tech for the first time.
Oh, okay.
I was also diving in freshwater for the first time.
And people don't realize how much of a difference that can be.
God.
Yeah,
I got an ear infection after my cave course because I underestimated the amount of weight I didn't need. And I thought, just remove like a kilo or two, But then I sank like a rock, and I was like, oh my God, with all these things, like laying line,
task loaded, just super
task loading, and like, oh shit, I gotta equalize now. Okay, equalize.
Well, sorry, because you just said something, and I would regret not at least asking about it. So Kota Baru, you had to search for a body.
It was.
Is that okay? Are you okay to?
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Okay.
So I can't remember what year this was, but so I just bought a side scan sonar. Then it was too. And that's a different story altogether, but as to why I did that. But anyway, I had one, and so these the search and rescue guys from the fire station, rounded up a couple of my friends, and they're like, hey, can you come help out? So it was in a river that it's called the Kelantan River, and visibility is next to nothing. Like the water looks like an iced tea.
It's like
iced
mud.
tea, or it's like we call it like Milo, Milo water here. So it's literally like you go in, you open your eyes, it's pitch black. You can't see anything. So it's all feel like
We call it diving by braille.
Braille diving. And there wasn't anything much we could do. It was a river that was flowing. They were saying, oh yeah, the kid drowned over there, and like in our minds we knew, like, look, he's not going to be there anymore because it's a high flow river. But we just went down anyway because it's just to appease the family,
kind of peace of mind. Yeah.
But that was one time I was searching for a dead body.
I don't know. So I in Texas, there's few drowning cases probably a year in the lake. There's a big lake in Texas, and occasionally, that happens where people need to go search. And obviously they have their search and recovery teams. They have their teams that will go out and do that, the sheriff's department. But I just don't know how I don't know if I'd be able to do something like that, to be honest, just because it's, I mean, everybody's different, but like diving is such like a joyful thing for me. And then to kind of throw that factor in would, I don't know if I would be able to do something like that, but kudos to you to at least try, because that's not something that would be an easy task to do. But sorry, I was just curious. You threw that out there real quick, so I was like, let's chat about that for a second. Your cave course, best dive ever. Yeah. Moving forward from there, where'd it go?
So so I was based in Koh Lanta still at the time, and me and the buddies on my course would get together every couple of months and just drive around the caves and go. So I was doing a lot of cave diving in that year, as much as I could, really, and just practicing skills as well. I remember the one skill I was fascinated with was entanglement and having to cut the line and rejoin the line. So I was like, okay, I want to practice this so it's solid, right? And I spent COVID actually practicing this one skill, because I had this in my bedroom. I had a line in one end, line in the other, inside of my the other end of my room, and just practicing, joining these two lines together. What do they call it? I can't remember the skill. They have a word for it, but it's where you get entangled and then you have to cut the line and then make sure you hold on to the right end, because you have to then rejoin
Oh, yes.
it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I remember that part of my training. Yes.
So that kept me sane during COVID. So in Koh Lanta, we've got these islands called Koha, and before I became a cave diver, there are these caves. So there's this place called the Cathedral in Koha. And in the cathedral, it's basically a massive cave chamber, right? But at the back of this chamber, like right at the back, there's this smaller cave that for years, I mean, everybody's like, oh yeah, don't go in this cave. It's like people have died there. And so I'm also like kind of a scaredy cat in that I will not push the limits of my training. So
yeah, well, I don't think that's a scaredy cat. That's just being cautious,
but
and smart.
also cautious.
I guess,
You know, also quite cautious and So I never went into
caution
this
keeps
cave.
people alive.
Yeah. So anyway, so after I got cave trained, so the first thing, and one of the first few things I did was okay, I'm gonna go check out this cave, and I went in. It went in for about 100 meters. I'm like, this is a baby cave, man. Like, anyway, it was pretty cool though. For you know, it was 100 meters deep, as in linear depth, but it was still pretty cool. Like it was,
yeah.
I could practice skills in there. Drill.
And the thing
drills.
is, it's cave diving is. Don't get me wrong. It is a very high risk. It is a dangerous sport. But if you're properly trained, you know there are risk factors that go away, right? Like you're properly trained, you have the proper gear, and I have to word this correctly because I don't want to come off like a dick, but to people that don't know, like the untrained diver, it does seem like this crazy, like you have a death wish type thing, and it's not that. Like if you take somebody riding a bike down the road, but people don't know the factors, that could be considered dangerous, right? With the cars flying by. I mean, even a vehicle, car.
Let me tell you something. Like all the tourists in Thailand, like some of them go to Thailand and they rent a scooter for the first time in their life. And then they're riding the scooter. And dude, that for me, that's a bigger death wish.
That's what I mean. And so it seems like this. Oh my God, and then there's so many, especially like the internet these days with the clickbait videos. People will be like untrained, this is a whole nother topic. But if you get proper training, you start to alleviate and the risks go down. But there's always a risk, 100%. But that's the same thing with scuba diving, right?
Yeah.
Like you go underwater, we're in a foreign environment. It's all a risk. It's just about mitigating the risk. So
yeah. I mean, like 2 weeks ago, this dude in Semporna that I didn't really read exactly, but just hearing through the grapevine that he was overweighted and he couldn't, or something like that, right? And this happens probably more. I mean, in Malaysia, like we've had
not even in Malaysia, all over the world,
but in Malaysia alone, like we've had 3 incidents this year.
Yeah. There was just a recent one. Well, it was in Indonesian, but I think it was a Malaysian.
Oh, so exactly. Yeah. So I'm not going to name these places, but we've had 3 incidents involving Malaysians or Malaysia this year alone. So it is another topic that I'm passionate about as well, is the quality of dive training that's being offered. And I'm not, there's no agency. I'm not pointing fingers at any agency at all. Like it really isn't about the agency, and we all know that. I think it's the mindset of quite a lot of Malaysians that they want to get a certification card.
Yeah.
Right? Some of them, it's like 2 days. It's can I get it in 2 days?
It's an achievement. It's
like oh, I can't swim, but can I get certified? And then you have instructors that allow these people to get certified, and it's about
that's a whole nother topic too, because like I realize, like some instructors, they with each certification they're getting paid, and it's like their livelihood essentially. But at some point, like they're pushing, I don't want to say their morals, but they're bending the line just a little bit too much, and at the end of the day, we all do have to realize there is a risk, and people need to understand that. So it's not just like, because that's one thing I always hate is a lot of people, they think they're paying for their certification. It's like you're paying for training, you earn your certification. Something I try to highly push,
for sure.
because it's a vicious cycle, and
something I'm pushing a lot now in my instructor courses is underwater time. Like when you train your students, give them as much underwater time as you can. We can go all day about when you should start teaching neutral buoyancy and all that. Yeah, of course, like neutral buoyancy as early as possible, for sure. of course, but I don't think you should do it on the first. I mean, that's just me. But like first time they're in the water, it's kind of hard, right? But you can. I actually start anything after the neutral buoyancy fin pivot skill. I just right now it's like everything else is done neutral. Like don't bring them back down on the knees and don't overweight. You can overweight them at the start because their breathing patterns are a little bit erratic. You need to keep them down just to like get them comfortable. Once they're a little bit more comfortable, take the weight off, like remove.
Well, I think a big thing too is as you're doing these things, you're informing the student, because a lot of the times I'll see that they're like, okay, just give them more weight, but we're not going to,
we're not explaining why.
Yeah, and then they don't take that weight away and say, hey, we gave it to you because of this. Now we're going to take it away because you're a little bit more comfortable. These are the things you need to know, because, and that's why I hate like the classes of 6 or 8, because like the instructors, I mean, I'm not going to go into studies, but we're not like designed to multitask, right? Like it's one of those things. So if you have 8 different students with 15, 16, 25 different things going on, you're just doing things, not thinking, not explaining, and that takes away from the student, because then they're thinking, no, I need the 8 kilos to stay down, when it's like, no, you don't. They just did that in the beginning because, your breathing patterns are erratic. So that's a big thing right there, I see.
And I'm going to sound like a broken record when I say this to some people hearing this podcast. For example, like in the open water course, students are actually supposed to do weight checks in confined water alone 4 times.
Yeah, every dive or every
every confined water after the first one, right? So I'm talking about PADI now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about any other agency, but we're supposed to do it 4 times in confined water, to the point where the last two times they do it, it's like they're doing it. They have to do it themselves.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Not you tell them how much weight they need or whatever. And now the problem is like, and I don't know if this is the fault of the agency, but I've identified the problem. I'm not going to talk about it on air though. But I've kind of identified where that, where it's kind of a vicious circle that needs to be broken, right? So I'm trying to advocate to break that cycle, because it's because the instructors aren't, basically they weren't taught from early on that they had to do this. Therefore, when they're teaching the open water course, they're not really emphasizing on this that much.
Yeah.
They're basically weighting their students for the students, rather than getting the students to learn how to do it themselves and be aware about how much weight they actually need.
There's something to be said about, I don't want to go back to tribal knowledge, but like there's a lot of tribal knowledge in the scuba industry,
sure.
right? Where it's like, this is how I learned, this is how I'm going to do it. I know this is what the standards say, but this is what worked. I'm going to pass that. And then eventually it just gets so far down the line to where it's like, well, why are we doing this? Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea.
My favorite one with tribal knowledge is, and again, I used to do it like this, but then now I know better. Now, you learn, you pick things up, and you expose yourself to people that are constantly expose yourself to people that are better than you, and you learn stuff, right? You learn stuff that's better. So one of my favorite ones is where in the dive master course, there's the 24 skills that we learn in PADI. I'm talking PADI, sorry guys, but yeah, so 24 skills. So one of them is how to perform a buoyancy check, which is taking a normal breath, floating at eye level, blah blah blah. But you're taught in most dive master courses to cheat in that skill, because you're expected to be overweighted.
Yeah.
It's funny, right? I mean, I'm guilty. I used to teach like this because I didn't know better, right? You're taught to cheat by not deflating your BCD completely, and you're actually taught to cheat well enough that the student thinks that you're fully deflating your BCD, when actual fact you're only like deflating it 3/4.
They're like, wow, he's so good. And you're just like, nope. I just
and
know
you
the
float
cheat
at
codes.
eye level perfectly.
Yeah,
and so now it's like, so I use it. I tell my instructors, don't cheat. Like actually properly weight yourself.
Yeah.
Teach your dive masters to be properly weighted. Now, of course, there's the argument of when do we do a weight check? At the end of the dive, at the beginning of the dive? Yeah, of course, the most accurate weight check is done at the end of the dive when your tank is near depletion or at 50 bar or whatever. But you can still do a weight check at the start of the dive, just account for the extra air in the tank, right? Yeah. It's not rocket science. instead of floating at eye level, just expect to float slightly below eye level, right? Or expect to sink very slowly.
Yeah,
it's not rocket science, you know.
So I think one of the biggest problems, one of the things that I always faced when I was teaching, and it's been a few years at this point. I say this literally every other episode. I'm going to get back into it one of these days, and I will. But I think the time management thing is such a huge thing, and I think that goes across all agencies, no matter what. Time management's always such a big thing, and you get rattled because, especially, you know, you've been in charge. So I don't know when the last time you've actually worked for somebody where they're like running the shop. So because you've had your own shop for a while. So when the instructor is under the time crunch, like the shop that I used to work at, basically, you know, we had 2 slots of when people were going to teach on a Saturday, Sunday, right? So basically you come in, you have the 8 o'clock in the morning till 12, or you have like the 1 till 6. I always like the 1 till 6 because nobody was after you, so you can extend your time. Yeah. Whereas the beginning slot, I hated that so much because I'm like, I have to get in the first day, get everybody through their paperwork, get everybody, you know, through all this stuff, and then we have to get in the pool. Leaves only a certain amount of time. I'm trying to get through all these different skills, and I think there's something to be said there. Like, people need more time, and that will add so much more value because of the fact that when people are like, oh, I only have 4 hours to get 6 people through these courses, like, there's no way you're going to be able to do everything, right? Yeah. So that's kind of a thing that I see. What are things because now you're in a higher level, you're teaching the instructors. What are some things that you see that you kind of have to correct going into these courses? I know the cheating, I'm sure, is one thing, obviously, but like, what are other things that you're seeing?
Okay, so even though I train mostly instructors, I still train at the lower levels. I still do DSDs. I still take out fun dives. I still teach open water, courses. Because half of the year I spend in Thailand, in Koh Lanta. Even though I don't have my own dive center there anymore because I closed down during COVID, I shut it down. But I teach for another dive center, so I do IDCs for them. But in between IDCs, I live there, so they call me on to teach lower level courses as well. So I know what it's like to have a time crunch. But I guess I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I can also leverage and say, hey, look, I can't do this in this amount of time. Yeah. And I don't actually want to do it in this amount of time. You want me to train a good diver? This is how much time I need, But I guess I can say that and get away with it. Maybe a lot of instructors can't. Yeah. Because they're
the newer instructor who's on the lower part of the totem pole, do what you're told. And
I mean, it's all. I think one of my missions, especially on the Perhentian Islands, where this is where my heart really lies, right? The Perhentian Islands, is to educate dive center managers that look, it's about you need to give your students time and your instructors the time they need. And what's common on Perhentian, unfortunately, and it's really, really shit. And any of you guys listening to this podcast right now, like, yes, I'm saying it, I'm sorry, but you don't do confined water sessions in one go. Like, this is not what you should be doing. Like, there's 5, like, essentially, I don't know about any other agency again, but in the PADI confined water dives, there's 5 dives. And you try and crunch this into one session. Yeah. And it's like 2 hours session. It's ridiculous.
There's so much lost in that. Yeah. And yeah.
You're not giving time to your students to actually enjoy it all comes down to underwater time. You learn how to drive a car. You're not gonna, minimum time driving your car and go for the test. And this is essentially what we're doing. We're trying to make it as short as possible and sign people off to be divers. Hey, go off and
let them go off.
Yeah.
And it is a scary thing. I think another thing for dive center managers too is obviously there's a line here, but I feel like they should let their instructors or their, I guess dive masters in certain aspects to let them know it's like, it's okay to fail people. It's okay to not let them pass, but I know there's the money crunch. There's like, okay, we don't get paid unless they get their certification type thing. But it's like, you have to let them know, like, if that person's not ready, don't let them go. And sometimes it's like they'll be fine, or the worst is like that's the next person's problem. That's like the worst thing that I see is
exactly. Let them do the advanced course and get better then.
Exactly. Oh, dude. Yeah. I feel bad. I feel like we got a little bit. Well, we were talking about overhead environments, and then it got back into which it's totally fine because you're and you're obviously that your big part of your life is equally with overhead is teaching and guiding new instructors. So, but the not to cut the instructor side short of it. Tell me a little bit about where your overhead journey is. Where is it currently? Are you exploring? Are you cave diving Thailand? I know there's places in Malaysia I'm not too sure about. Tell me a little bit about the direction that's going in right now.
For the last 3 months, not much. I really I'm dying to get back on my CCR and clock in more hours so I can eventually, take that into a cave. And
what unit?
I'm using Dive Right Optima chest mounted.
Okay.
Chest mounted Optima.
Is it Optima or Choptima?
Well, the nickname is Choptima.
Okay.
But officially, it's called the Optima CM.
Oh, okay.
Right? In regards to that, so I've only been maybe on 2 trips this year.
As far as
overhead environments, right? So right at the start of the year, and again in February. Since then, I've been nonstop with my instructor development stuff. And anyway, where I am right now is it's on hold, but I mostly my overhead environment stuff is mostly at the moment anyway. It's to make me a better instructor trainer. That's basically I take away from that like elements of just hanging out with people who are better than me, who are people like Por, Miko, and even like last year I met Patrick Woodman in Kanchanaburi, the mines up in the Boyai mines, and just he's an intense guy, but a lot of what he says is like he's passionate about what he does, and diving is his life, and he knows what he's talking about. And
I feel like if you look up motivation in the dictionary, you'd find a picture of Patrick.
He's
a very motivated to the point where it's like inspiring, essentially, because he's pushing it, and there's like the battery's always on full charge, and that's I wish I had that, to be honest.
I mean, of course he's an intense guy, and you need to be, right, to be at that level. I think he's very passionate, and it rubs off on you, right? And the way he says it's how like the guys at ProTech, for example, minimum it's 4 years before you can become a full cave instructor. Or so I've kind of like, okay, so before meeting the guy, I was like, like let's start the journey, right, to become a full cave instructor. So I recently got evaluated as a TDI cavern instructor. I haven't submitted my application yet, but I will soon. But now it's just like, okay, let's chill, let's assist more courses, and then maybe teach a couple of cavern courses at this level, as many as I can. It's a bit tricky because we haven't really discovered accessible caves here in Malaysia. So if I want to teach, I have to go to Thailand or Indonesia. But anyway, that's a different story. But anyway, right now my overhead environment journey is really to complement my my instructor development courses. I bring stories and bring anecdotes, and it's also about the skill. I'm very attracted to the skill set involved in overhead environment diving. I like that you need to be completely, in good trim and like hovering at in a horizontal position without moving, and all these things. All these things fascinate me, and I bring elements to that into training my dive masters and instructors. Like for example, dive master training. I started with a session, just like. It's just general. I call it the general movement session, where it's like, okay, this is how you move underwater, like finning techniques, back kicks, just like moving in small spaces, confined spaces, building up core muscles. Like I go, do like exercises where we're lifting, blocks of weight on one side and tilting over and all that. And it's things to educate people from the start, right, of their professional journey. This is how you should be aiming to dive,
Well, and there's something to be said about that too, because if you give people a lot of different knowledge and show them that there's many different ways to do things. When they go on to teach somebody, they will have a bag of tricks to use depending on what the student problem is, because it's not always a one fix problem. One fix will fix all the problems, right? It's like, okay, this might not work. Oh, well, I learned how to do something this different way, so I can add this. Oh, this works. Or sometimes you encounter a problem, and you're like, shit, I don't even know what to do right now. But then you learn, and then now you have that in your bag of tricks. So the more you learn in the beginning, the better off they're going to be, because then they're going off into the world basically like, hey, I have this literally toolkit of different things that I can apply to these different situations, as opposed to just give them more weight,
Yeah. And I would say like 99% of the time, if you're having trouble or, encountering trouble when you're teaching a student, it comes down to giving them more underwater time.
Yeah.
Really. So someone can be struggling with, clearing their mask or whatever, and again, I used to do this, like, just repeating the skill over and over, asking them to do it over and over again, the same way. It's not going to make them do it any better. Just find a different way, or maybe just take them off for a relax. Okay, let's just go off for a swim first, relax, and then we'll come back and do it again, come back to it. So I love that side of teaching, that when I teach anyway, if someone's struggling with something, I'm like, okay, relax.
Yeah.
Let's just go off for one of the things in the open water course is, one of the skills listed in confined water anyway is called, swim over a sensitive bottom without touching the bottom. And you can do this, for 30 seconds, or you can do it for 10 minutes or even half an hour if you want. It doesn't tell you exactly how long. So the difference is, do you want to be that instructor that does it for 15, 20 seconds and bring them back and kneel them down on the sand, or take them around and have them, gain comfort with, their their equipment, and just,
Well, I think there's something to be said about that too, the way that you're looking at that teaching, because going back to, when you're guiding these future instructors, they're essentially looking at their instructor at the moment. How are they doing it? They're obviously in the leadership position. I'm going to take things, my instructor's saying to do it for 15 to 20 minutes, whereas if someone's like, no, my instructor said to do it for 15 to 20 seconds, you're fine, move on, right? And I think there is something, because obviously, we all know that there's the waterproof, I can't remember what they're called, but with the standards on them, like, okay, skill 1, skill 2, confined water 1, confined water 2. Like, what people need to realize, a lot of those are minimums, right? They're minimums. Like, it's like you do this, but I understand, because it goes back to that time management thing. It's almost like a vicious cycle, but there is a solution out there, and I know some shops are really good about implementing those solutions. Other shops, it's all about,
I mean, I'll give you an example, right? Like ProTech divers, for example, in Mexico. We know, this dude's like, he's very intense. He's got these standards in place, but his shop is doing really well,
top
right?
Notch.
It's top notch,
top tier,
and they're not cheap. They're doing things, why can't it apply to recreational diving? So I'm not saying we still need to balance it out with what we don't want to be overly exclusive.
Yeah.
So my dive center in Parentian, we so instead of the traditional five dive, well, not traditional, but some dive centers do it in 5 sessions. Sorry, not 5. Yeah, 5 sessions, because it's 1 confined session plus 4 open water dives. We do it in 7. So we break down confined water into minimum 2 sessions, take an additional third if you need. But when it comes to open water dives, we're doing the 4 plus an extra one.
Yeah.
And we're charging a little bit higher, and they get they get the use of a Peregrine dive computer as well.
But you're paying for a service. I mean, at the end of the day, that's just how it goes.
And I always tell my instructors, like, if they need more time underwater, take it. Please don't feel pressured by time. In this dive center, you don't have that pressure of time. Of course, the things you need to consider is yes, the boat comes to pick you up at a certain time. You don't want customers to wait on the boat, blah, blah, blah. But if you have to cut short on a session, do it and just add on another session, right? It's not, it doesn't cost us much more money. Maybe, it's just time. And then, But then also the argument comes back from the instructors, and when they come back to me and say, hey, yeah, but I could be teaching another course tomorrow, and I'm like, well, I don't say it then and there, but I'm like, okay, if you don't change your mindset, I'm not hiring you back next year.
Yeah, no, and because I was literally just about to mention that, because I understand, and this is a 100% valid argument, is there's a lot of underpay in the industry, right?
Yeah.
So, and good instructors 100% should be paid for their time, right? So it's like, if you have to take more time with a student, I do believe that should come with additional costs, right? Sure. And that should be something that should be relayed to the student kind of up front, like, hey, this is, and I've seen good shops do this, like, this is what we recommend for the standard amount of time for this course, right? Is a 4-day course. It's a 4-day course. If additional time is needed, it's X amount per day. Yeah. And people, because I think the biggest problem is people going into it expecting one thing because they're not given all the details up front, then it becomes a problem at the end because they're like, oh, it's only going to take 4 days. Well, in this student's mind, the customer's mind, they're like, well, it's going to take 4 days. I shouldn't need to. But if you tell them up front, then there's no problem. Yeah. So I do think that is kind of like that one thing, like, people should be paid for their time, but also just let the knowledge be out there, because of the fact that if you don't, that's when problems arise. Because some people can knock shit out of the park in 3 days and they're solid. I mean, I don't want to call them overachievers, but just people that are naturally good at things. Some people might need 4, some people might need 5. It just depends. And they just have to realize, like, pay people for their time. But yeah, the mentality of, well, I could be off to the next thing, making money. There is a balance there.
Yeah, of course. Then that has got me thinking, as in, you're absolutely right. So even though we do charge a little bit higher and we pay our instructors a little bit higher than the average shop, you're right that if they have to take extra sessions, they need to be paid accordingly. And again, I haven't done it yet, but I will actually come up with a system in place to actually brief students early on and say, this is the standard number of sessions. If we feel you need an additional session, this is how much you'd have to pay, and pay the instructors accordingly.
And because it is, I mean, because nobody wants to feel undervalued, right? Like, you're putting in a lot of time, and because at the end of the day, like, we do, I don't want to, and I'm not saying this is you or anything, but I know it's like a massive problem in the industry. Like, essentially in some places, like, dive masters are like pretty much slaves. Like, they're doing all the grunt work, they're doing all the shit work. They're being not really compensated, and then the solution for a lot of people is, we'll just become an instructor, and then you get paid the good money. And it's like, well, that's not always true.
In Perhentian, a big problem, only because cost of fun dives, it's probably one of the cheapest places in the world to dive. And I mean, I can't really charge a lot more than what. So even though we are a bit more, we also reward divers who do a lot of dives with us, so it gets cheaper for them. In my shop, I try to only hire instructors that can do both guiding and teaching. So rather than hire only dive masters to do a dive master job, sometimes we train in-house dive masters, and for the experience we let them guide afterwards, and they get paid accordingly. But it's because they're not dive masters, like the dive master wage per tank isn't that much that we want to hire instructors to do this job. And also, in a way, it's good for the instructors because they're not just teaching all the time. They get to guide divers and actually go on fun dives.
Well, I think that's a great business model, because of the fact that, and I'm not trying to put any dive masters out of business or anything, but the fact is, you have an instructor. If the instructor has this mentality in his head, like, I don't need to do that, that's the dive master's job, then they become, I don't want to say a dick, but they become a person that's like, they lose the value of, hey, this is actually hard work. So it's like, no, you need to go fill the tank. You need to help and be there for every aspect of it. It's not just, oh, that's the dive master's job, I don't need to do that. Oh, we spilled something on the floor, that's the dive master's. It's like, no, dude, put some value into that worker. And sorry, that sounds rude. Put some value into that worker, but give them the value of hard work, and it goes a long way. Yeah,
of course. 100%. One of the things I'm doing in my, so I start an instructor course next week on the 26th. And one of the things, I try and do things a little bit different on every course, or try different ways. Like I haven't found a magic formula yet on my IDCs, right? I try and do each one better than I did the last one. So I don't believe in magic formulas. It just makes you complacent.
If you find one, let me know.
Yeah, but so one of the things I'm doing is I found a real student, someone who's willing to be my guinea pig, rather, who's not certified yet.
Okay.
So it's the boyfriend of a friend of mine she's already an instructor, but she wanted me to teach him his open water in advance, and I was like, I don't have time. And then I had this bright idea, this amazing idea. I'm just gonna integrate that into my IDC, right?
Oh, okay.
So make my IDC, add a few days onto my IDC, but integrate this open water in advance course within my IDC.
It's real-time knowledge, real-time, yeah.
So basically, I'll do stuff with my candidates on one day, teach them, okay, confined water teaching, this is how you do it. And then next day, okay, it's day one of this person's open water course, how we do it in the real world. Like, this is, because I hate to say it, but there is, the way Paddy wants you to do it for the exams, and then there's, realistic ways to teach, right? So sometimes I struggle with getting that message across. For example, I'll give you an example, is in the open water training dives of the open water course. People are still teaching on those skills on knees, right? At the start of the dive, treating it as skills, during an open water dive, still doing mask clearing, mask removal on the knees. I understand in confined water, okay, if you want to do it on the knees, negatively buoyant in confined water, sure, that's your jam. But in open water, you should be having them done dynamically, right?
Yeah. Because
it's a dive, and when they want to clear a mask or remove a mask in future, they're going to be doing it on a dive, not negative on their knees. But anyway, it's kind of a struggle doing IDCs, because in the IEs, in the exams, like, the examiner wants to see it done around the line.
Yeah.
And they don't bat an eyelid if someone does it negatively buoyant. There's no comments being made. They're evaluated objectively.
Yeah.
Rather than subjective. So I can tell my candidates that, hey, in real world teaching, you do it dynamically. But if I don't show them how, it's hard to get that information across, because during actual skills demonstrations, or when they're actually doing it for the IDC, I kind of have to do it the way it's supposed. They want to see it in the exam, because they have to pass the exam first before they become real instructors, right? But then communicating that, hey, this is how we do it. I find myself constantly having to say, this is how we do it in the IDC and IE, but this is how you do it
in the real world.
Do it in real world. So I wish one day, that I wouldn't have to do that, right? I wish that Paddy would adopt the style where, instead of having it on a line, that we actually do it during a fun dive. And
No,
but anyway, I understand. I understand it's not easy, right? But that's why I'm kind of integrating this real course within the IDC, so they can actually see.
I'm curious to know how that's going to work out. I'll have to follow up, because that sounds super like a very interesting way to look at it. And
it takes a lot of planning, and for sure, I have to really plan it down to a T. And I find like, okay, I'm lucky that I have the option of extending my IDC by a couple of days. I just spoke to the examiner yesterday. I'm like, if I need to move this date by a couple of days, and he's like,
Well, that's cool though, because you might find a new formula that will work out, and it kind of benefits everybody. From the student, either students of the IDC, the actual open water student, and you, because now you're learning something new. So that's
kind of like exciting. So now so I'm thinking like, oh yeah, shit, I'm gonna be under pressure to do a really perfect course, And but then at the same time, I'm thinking, well, hang on, like, the worse he is, the better it is for them.
Yeah.
Like,
because then they see real world problems.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Well, let me throw out my last question, and thank you for joining the podcast, because I know we have a little bit of time. We got to get to the dive show. I want to throw out my last question for you, and we'll have to obviously have a part 2. So next time, might be like 6 months from now, a couple trips, we'll meet up, say we need to do it, have a couple beers. Yeah, just joking. But my last question for you is, somebody that has taken a lot of people through the instructor process, what is the best advice that you could give to somebody that is about to begin their process of becoming an instructor?
I would say there's a couple of things, right? You need to go into, before you go into an IDC, you're not going into an IDC to learn anything new, right? All this information should have been taught to you. I have now come up with a PDF sheet or whatever that tells every prospective candidate, like, this is the level you need to be at to enter your IDC. Because again, in the past, there's a lot of like gaps in training, people and all that, and I find myself having to reteach a lot of things, like things as simple as how to use the lift bag and knot tie and weight checks, buoyancy checks. So you need to really go back to like your core training, like your rescue. It all starts from rescue diver and then your dive master training. So you can't come into an IDC expecting to be taught anything new, because I'm not supposed to be teaching you anything new. Like, I'm not supposed to be teaching you dive theory, spending like 5 hours until midnight, 1, 2 a.m. to be teaching you dive physics. That's not really what my job is. My job is to teach you how to then teach it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not teaching you how, Archimedes' principle from scratch, right? I'm trying to explain it to you in a way that you can relay this information to a student.
Yeah.
Same with teaching, as well, with skills, right? It's now not about you doing it. You have to now teach it and be able to evaluate.
Demonstration quality.
Yeah. And if you're also, one other thing about the IDC is candidates come out and new instructors come out certified or being able to teach dive master candidates. I mean, some people will disagree with that, and I'm one of those guys. I think you kind of need to be at a higher level before you can actually train another dive master candidate.
Trainer, a role, I agree with that. Right? I definitely,
But again, I try and I do include a component at the end as to how we can actually mentor dive masters. How what a proper schedule should look like. What are the elements you should talk about? How to evaluate the skills and all these kind of things. But so sorry, coming back to your question, which was what advice I would. So make sure you brush up on all your core knowledge before coming into the IDC. Don't expect to be learning anything new. I'm only there to help you relay that information into a teaching present, like how to actually effectively teaching and also how to plan your time during courses. These are things I would love to focus more on rather than having to teach things from scratch. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So you heard it there, folks. Know your shit. Sorry. Well, man, Anand, I absolutely appreciate, as it's funny, I hit the table as I told you, don't hit the table. Anand, I absolutely appreciate you coming onto the podcast today. Thank you very much once again for making the time to re-record. I'll have to re-listen to the first one too, because they were both really good, and maybe we'll do the unreleased tapes at one point in time. But this has been absolutely amazing, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time, and look forward to getting in some dives with you in the future.
Well, thank you, Nick, for having me here. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love your podcast. It's thank you. It's an honor.
Off-gassing, a scuba podcast.